Hi everyone, Catherine here from Minky Finger Cat, back with another of my using up a magazine kit cards. This is card number 2, and for this I thought I would start off with the stencil that's in the kit. So for those that haven't seen it, I'll if you see the playlists, there is one called Use Up a Magazine Kit. So that's where on the first one I did go through everything that was in the kit. It's a Crafter's Companion type one, and I just think it's a really pretty kit, but I thought I would challenge myself to do a video with every project that I make with it. And for the most part, I'm going to try and keep to only using the supplies that are in the kit in terms of images and papers and stuff. But obviously I am having to add my own mediums, my own cards, card bases and stuff like that. So for this one, I thought I'd start with the stencil. Now it's quite a delicate stencil. So it's got lots of tiny little bits. So I decided that the pouncing technique might be a little bit easier for this one. And I went with craft ink just so I could see where it was. But really the intention was to emboss. And because it's a pigment based ink, that craft ink, it's really good for adding an embossing powder too, because it stays wet for a little bit longer. Now you'll see I hadn't used my embossing buddy beforehand, so some of the little dots of embossing powder had hung around, so I just used a clean paintbrush to paint those away, sort of brush them away, before I then heat embossed. And that left a really pretty kind of panel. Very unusual for me to do a card that is straight onto the blank there, and not to do a panel on top of it, but that's what I chose to do. Then I went to the paper kit to try and see if there was something that would inspire me to do as the card topper, and I went with this circular element. Now, I don't know about you, but I am rubbish at cutting out circles when I'm fussy cutting, so I went for a die instead. But what was good about this was it also allowed me to then layer it up. I think I talked about last time, the paper in this kit is not that thick. So I do feel that it needs to be backed in cardstock, especially for something like this on a card topper. Now this time I chose to use my Pritt stick, and that would give it a nice secure flat gluing down to that die cut circle that I cut that was just slightly larger than the original. So a bit unusual, I chose to bring in red because the flowers that are on that element are pink and red, and so even though the base is sort of like a peachy pink, I thought it worked well together. And at this point I thought, right, I'm just going to keep it really simple and put the bow on. I do change my mind, I don't keep it so simple, but the bow is just a piece of scrap green satin ribbon, you know, the sort that you cut out of your tops when they've got little hangers on that are always like being visible. Yeah, one of those. I don't waste any of those. I cut them out, I pop them on my craft desk, and then they get used at some point. Now, last time I used the kit, I stamped more of these flowers and leaves than I needed for the particular project I was working on, because I knew I would want to come back to them at some point in the future. So in this case, I've decided to do green leaves, 3 of the green leaves and the 2 rounded sort of pansy type looking flowers. Are they pansies? Don't know. Well, anyway, they become red flowers. I used my cherry cobbler stamping blends for these, and even though I had originally stamped them in the VersaFine, because it had been some time since I had inked them and stamped them, they were absolutely fine. They didn't bleed at all. Now this time I decided to fussy cut them out without a white trim, which does take a little bit more concentration and effort, I think, than leaving the white border. But I think it looked really effective, especially with those paper panels. You'll see that I am going quite fast on this. That's because this video is speeded up. It is speeded up around about 4.5 times. I actually take ages to fussy cut things just to make sure that I am doing it neatly. But, you know, generally I'm listening to the radio or an audiobook or something, so it doesn't really matter how long it takes. I think in total this card probably only took about half an hour. yeah, probably about half an hour to make. So it doesn't take too long at all. Now, this is a little trick I don't often remember to do, but especially I don't need to do it if I do it with a white boundary, you see. But when fussy cutting all the way up to the line art, what I like to do is take a black marker of some description. This is a Stampin' Right marker, and just coat the edge of the cardstock, especially because it's white cardstock. It just stops any white edges, and it makes sure that your line art is all the way to the edge of your image. I think it just finishes it off nicely. So at this point I'm thinking, actually no, I am going to stick that all over there and decide on what I'm doing here. Is I'm going to stick them flat for the leaves and for the big flower. Then I'm going to stick my circle on top. And you can see here there's a bit of fiddling around as the glue was wet. And then I'm going to stick my flower and then stick my bow onto the top of that. And that, I think, is just a slightly better, more elevated card, shall we say. This is me trying to fiddle and work out what I'm going to do with the inside of the card. Because it is a coloured card blank, I usually add in a white panel on the inside. Sometimes I do something to the inside, and in this case I just chose to put a little bit of the green stenciling just to carry on that sort of like feature all the way through. And then I finished off with just some gems. So added into this particular card that wasn't from the kit is just the ribbons, obviously the circle dies, and those gems. Other than that, it's pretty much the kit. I really like this. I think it's a nice, and it's a slightly different colour combination than I'm used to doing, so a bit different. I hope you enjoyed this and are enjoying this series. Don't forget to subscribe if you are, and please put a thumbs up in the comments below. And also, do you do something on the inside of your card? I'd love to know, so please leave me a comment below. So a quick reminder, this is the kit that I am using up for this series. I hope you enjoy seeing what I make from it. Obviously this is card number 2, and there will be plenty more to come, I'm sure. Until next time then, bye bye.